right, welcome back, everybody, to the Alpha Jedi podcast. Today, we are very excited. We have Dylan Madden in the house today. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. I'm out here in Southern California, so just trying to survive the heat and some of the fires that are burning up north. So it's been an interesting time to be out here.
Yeah, I'm currently in my office right now, avoiding the humidity in South Carolina.
Yeah, that's humidity is the killer. That's what gets it done. For those of you who aren't aware of who Dylan Madden is, he's actually a fairly well-known personality through Twitter, but also through his site as well as through his daily emails. And so, the first question I had for you is, what kind of drove you to initially start sharing your story and your experiences?
That's a great question. So let's see. It started back in 2014. I found a blog called Bold and Determined by Victor Pride, and that kind of just opened my eyes to what was possible as far as the whole blogging thing went. Because I was a manager at a small engine shop and miserable, blah blah blah. You've heard the whole story 1,000 times, but
Hmm.
I was just miserable, and so I was like, there has to be a better way. I'd done some like side hustles and all that stuff in middle school, high school, so I was already aware of the whole business thing. But once I found Bold and Determined, that kind of opened my eyes to the whole blogging thing. So I was like, maybe I can start a blog and then kind of share my story. And I'm not gonna lie, in the very beginning, for probably like the first 3 to 6 months, I was pretty much a copycat of B&D because I didn't really know what I should and shouldn't do. I didn't, and also I wasn't actually doing anything. And then somebody called me out and like in an email, and him and I are actually friends to this day. And that kind of changed the whole trajectory. And it's just pretty much been a constant like evolution over the last like 3.5 years. And let's see, I was like a freshman or sophomore. I basically watched my dad go from, he was going to be retiring in a few years. He was pretty much not the very top of the company, but like right below that. And I saw somebody that was doing the whole corporate thing, had a nice house, like working all the time, doing all that stuff. And I saw him get cut, and that kind of like was an epiphany for me because I was like, okay, so maybe taking the whole traditional path, like doing the whole corporate thing, doing all that's not necessarily for me. And I've kind of experienced both sides of the coin. Like with my dad, I would say we were probably like middle class, upper middle class. And then whenever I was growing up with my mom, up until I was around 8, I was living with her, and I experienced like poverty of like watching her go without eating so that I could eat. Not all the time, but it's still definitely in my mind as far as like my memories go. So I definitely experienced both sides, which I guess that's where a lot of my drive comes from because
Hmm.
I've seen what's possible if you like earn your living in a good way. But then I've also seen what's possible if you're lazy and you don't really do anything. And so I've experienced a lot of different things, which has kind of built my personality up to this point. So I guess that was my long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, it's interesting how different experiences, especially when you're growing up, have a really deep and lasting significant impact on yourself. And especially when you're, looking at your parents and you're seeing that either they're, doing the old style of working super hard and then just kind of getting kicked to the curb and they no longer are needed, or, seeing your parents kind of struggle to survive and, help as a kid, raise you a little bit. So it's definitely something that can give a lot of perspective and drive to you as you're forging your personality and coming up in life.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So in your one of your most recent emails, you list out your vision of 7 steps. So how did you land on 7 steps? Was it something that you were refining this list for a while, or was it just you sat down and thought out like, all right, these are the next action steps that I need to take and came up with this list?
That's funny you asked that. So for a long time, it's all about like refining your vision, refining your goals, and all of that. And so I wanted to create something that I could kind of just publish on social media that pretty much like summarize like what I'm working towards and what I've been working towards.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually ended up just being the 7 steps, but it's been something I've been working towards ever since like, I'd say high school. And then obviously as I refined myself and figured things out and all of that, I've kind of just obviously refined it, and it ended up just being the 7 steps, which all along my main motivation was kind of elevating my mind. And what I meant by that was I wanted to learn kind of how reality worked, how you can kind of bend it to your will, basically just how the world works without trying to get all esoteric about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've experienced like different types of spiritual stuff in the past, and I'm a pretty spiritual person. So that's kind of the whole elevating your mind, just kind of figuring out like how the world works,
Mm-hmm.
and then figuring out who you are, all that stuff. And then once you figure out that and you elevate your mind to a certain point, then you can go to the next one, which was kind of getting great at one skill. A lot of guys, and I was just like this, guys and girls, there's so many different options, like especially with the internet now. Like you can be a blogger and sell books, you can sell video courses, you can be a Twitter personality, you can be a YouTuber, you can start some type of service-based business, you can be a drop shipper. The list goes on and on. And if you are stretched too thin, obviously you're not going to achieve anything. So I'm like really big on really honing in on one thing. And I mean, that's a ton of people, a lot of successful people talk about that. And I wanted to fight that for a long time. I thought I could be all these different things while achieving my vision. And it just became more and more and more apparent that you really just have to become really good at something. That doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're going to do for the rest of your life. A lot of people have faulty thinking and like thinking that, well, if I'm like become really good at this one thing, well, what about all this other stuff? I kind of look at life as everything just kind of builds upon like whatever you're doing. So currently right now I'm learning direct response, which kind of, I want to become like really good at marketing. Obviously that marketing is a very vague thing. So I've broken it down into steps, because marketing is all being online, building a brand, doing all that stuff. It's all about marketing. So I've kind of broken that into right now for the foreseeable future. I'm really going in on learning direct response. And the way I'm doing that is currently I'm in the process of launching a drop shipping store so I can learn paid advertising and more importantly, direct response, because I'm going to be creating ads, doing all that stuff. And luckily I'm not like your, I guess, quote unquote, average bear. I'm a pretty good writer. I've got experience selling stuff. So I don't know. It's just kind of, it made more sense. I wanted to refine how I write and leading people to take the next action, which obviously that's going to translate to whenever I get back like fully into blogging and to Twitter, all that other stuff. I mean, direct response is like the key fundamental, like whether you're trying to get subscribers, whether you're trying to sell a product, whether you're trying to just get more engagement for an idea. So that's kind of the way my mind works.
And I think you brought up a really, really interesting topic, which is sort of the importance of spirituality and being able to elevate your mind and get yourself lined up and right on in that sense. And so, how would you say what are the challenges for people in figuring out sort of their spirituality in the much more, I guess, technological age, where it feels like as a whole, as a society, we've somewhat shifted away from that in favor of a more technological gratification as opposed to a spiritual one?
Well, for me, the biggest thing was, or I wouldn't say the biggest thing, but one of the first steps was like really deciding what my belief system is, because at the end of the day, like I don't think any one belief system, and I've argued with myself plenty of times about this, but I really don't think there's any one belief system that is the one to like follow. But it's all about just kind of figuring out your general truth the best that you can, and then from there just building upon that, but trying not to get too lost into it, because I got lost into reading book after book after book after book after book, and before long you end up having so many different philosophies in your mind that you don't know what's what, and then you eventually kind of lose your concept of who you are. So I mean, as far as like elevating your mind and spirituality, I'd spend a little bit more time alone, whether that be going out to the wilderness, whether that be going to the beach. But it really starts with kind of having your own philosophy, like some principles that you live by, and really just being true and honest with who and what you are. And I can't really give you a one size fits all for like figuring out who you are.
Hmm.
But I know it took me about a full year of spending a lot of time kind of to myself, like just not really, I wouldn't say completely alone. Like I don't recommend you just completely isolate yourself like a hermit for a straight year. Like I'll go out with friends occasionally, but I was very careful about what energy or what I put my attention on and all of that. But like it
Hmm.
really starts with kind of figuring out the general vision that you have for yourself and being honest with who you are, and then just kind of accepting that you might not ever fully understand the truth, but just build upon like your who you are and your philosophy. I'm trying to not like get too deep into it because it's very easy to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just refine who you are, figure out who you are, and have your own philosophy.
All right. Very, very cool. Um, so you've been fairly well traveled and have lived in a lot of different places. And so what's been your favorite place that you've lived so far?
Well, I've definitely done a lot of traveling. I wouldn't say my home base is in South Carolina, but I have traveled around the U.S. I've lived in Florida, but I'd definitely say Los Angeles because that was where a lot of growth for me happened. Like I was able to work with Victor Pride, the guy I ended up learning a lot from, and then several years later, I ended up getting to work with him, so that was pretty cool. But I don't know, Los Angeles is definitely a very special place to me just because of it's got a different energy. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that I would want to live there forever, but I mean, it's one of those places I wouldn't mind going to for a few months and then coming back. Like where I'm at right now, it's out in the woods, and so I prefer to be kind of away from society, but be able to enjoy society.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Los Angeles is definitely a special place for me, just because just the overall energy. And
Yeah.
a lot of people complain about the traffic and the pollution and all that, but honestly, I didn't really experience the traffic until I was probably leaving, and that was the first time. And I was definitely on different hours than most people. Like I didn't go into a job or anything. So if I had to go into a job, I probably would have hated Los Angeles. But I don't know. I like the people. They seem pretty positive. The beach is so much better than the East Coast, just from what I experienced.
No, that's it's a
And I
fact.
like the culture out there.
Yeah, that's I'm from LA and love it out here. And what I really like about the city is that it's very diverse, but also people are fairly open to ideas or collaborations or just in general um, combining efforts. So that's a really cool thing. Where when I go to a lot of other cities, especially on the East Coast, people aren't necessarily as receptive to collaborative ideas in my experience. So the openness of the I guess more SoCal beachy lifestyle, I think that's something that I really really like out here and definitely don't take for granted.
Yeah, and another thing that I really liked was the like all the people. Like I took Uber everywhere I went, and like every person I met through Uber, I just liked the hustle mentality that they had. Like a lot of them, like one guy that I met in particular, I think he was like 23 or something, but he had some type of service-based business. It was like a Facebook agency, but then he was doing Uber, and then he had another side hustle, and then he had a part-time job, and so he was just going, and we ended up having coffee. Like he gave me his business card, and we ended up having coffee before I left. But I don't know, every person I met seemed to be like on the move. Like the thing I'm not crazy about with where I'm from, which is Charleston, South Carolina, is a lot of people kind of take the time, and
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm more of I like to have a purpose. I like to have some type of mission,
Yeah.
and I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that I liked about Los Angeles. Now that I think about it, was everybody just seems to be on some type of mission.
Yeah, I like that people here are determined and are focused, but they aren't unnecessarily stressed. which is when every time I go to the Coast, specifically in New York, and I'm there, and every time I hang out with people, they're just like, you have to be from California because you're just way too like calm and collected. And I'm like, well, I'm very focused, been driven, but also at the same time, I have that balance where I have the drive and I can enjoy life and don't let the stress of the drive like determine everything that I do.
Yeah, it's actually funny. When I was in Los Angeles, that's where I rebranded my blog at the time into Calm and Collected, because that's kind of it forced me to become that, because
All
I was
right.
hustling every day, like doing all that stuff, and like I was like, you know what, Calm and Collected, I like that. And so I rebranded and came back to Charleston and started the second phase of the evolution.
All right. So a question I've been wanting to ask you for a while and just pick your brain about a little bit is, what do you think is the most important thing for guys to focus on today?
I mean, just finding some type of direction. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything business related. I know if you get on like Twitter or really any platform online, a lot of people are talking about hustle, 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 but like it doesn't have to be necessarily a business or whatever. I was talking with a friend the other day, and he sees some of the stuff that I do, and he's just that it's not in his like he's not interested in business or anything like that, or which is completely cool. And like I'm not going to get into his personal story, but like I just sat down and like talked with him about that, and now he's got some direction, and all of a sudden he's happy and all that. So it really just comes down to one, elevating your mind, like we talked about earlier, and
Mhm.
having some type of direction. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It doesn't have to be becoming a millionaire by 24. It doesn't have to be anything. It could literally just be building your body or having a good family, or it's something, just anything you can do to have direction. Because if you are just aimlessly going through your day,
Mhm.
your soul's just slowly dying, and your mind's going to become numb, and it's not a good thing. I spent a lot of my early life just kind of being aimless and all of that, and I'm never going back to that. So definitely find some type of direction. That would be the number one thing that I would recommend for anybody, men or women.
Very awesome. And who would you say has been, I guess, the kind of the biggest influence in your life, as far as helping you get to where it is that you are today?
Definitely the first person would be Victor Pride. I know I keep shouting him out, but he was kind of the guy that opened my eyes to the whole online thing. And then as of late, it would definitely be Ed Lattimore and Alexander Cortez.
Okay. Yeah, we've had Ed on. He was actually my first guest on the podcast, and he's a really awesome, really, really sharp guy. And I know you were at an event recently where you got to meet him. So what was that like for you?
Oh yeah, it was really cool. I didn't really get to talk to him too much at the event, because I was like helping check people in and all that stuff. But I was able to have dinner with him later that evening, and then I had lunch with Alexander Cortez like the day after. Like it was as I was about to go to the airport. So that was definitely awesome. They were both really, really genuine guys, and I could sit there and talk to them for hours. So yeah, they're great. They're great people, though.
Awesome. Well, in the interest of time, because we know that you have a very tight schedule, which is why we also want to again thank you for coming on here and making some time for it. What's next for you? What projects do you have coming up? You got any travel coming up anytime soon?
I mean, currently I'm working on a few projects that will be like unveiled or whatever in the next few months, that are client projects. So it's not necessarily something related to my personal brand or anything, but yeah, right now I'm doing the drop shipping thing. I'm doing some client projects, and then I'll be dropping. I've got my book Think and Go Hustle, but I'm going to probably be taking that off the market, turning that into a video course, because I just Think and Go Hustle is kind of a very compact, practical. Like if you want to elevate your mind, if you want to figure out kind of the hustle mentality, all that stuff, here's exactly how to do it. And I broke it down like as just concise as possible. But I've had quite a few people ask about like some type of video course related to that, where I can kind of break down certain things a little bit more. So as far as like directly from me, it'll definitely be the Think and Go Hustle video course. I don't have a release date yet, but definitely just tune into commoncollected.com, and I'll definitely keep people updated on that.
All right. So yeah, if people want to reach out to you, they can go to commoncollected.com. Also, they can find you at Twitter. Anywhere else they can find you or chase you down.
Yeah, it's pretty much just commoncollected.com, and then the Twitter, which would be at Real Dylan Madden.
All right. Very awesome. Well, sir, we want to say thanks very much again for making some time to come on the show, and it's a pleasure having you. For those of you out there listening, thanks very much, and please subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.